outbreak will peak? How long will the American people have to remain on this emergency footing? And for Dr. Birx, as the administration tries to get its arms around this test kit shortage issue, the next glaring need could be respirators and related hospital equipment. So what is the administration doing right now to ramp up production of respirators and that kind of equipment should this outbreak persist?
So when you have an outbreak like this, particularly if you're trying to interfere with it, it's really impossible
Đúng rồi,
to predict the time
1
element of
giờ
when
hôm
it's
nay
going to peak
Tổng
and when
thống
it's
Trump
actually
đã
going to go down. So if you look at
phía
the
Nhà Trắng đã tuyên bố
situation
tình trạng khẩn
where
cấp quốc gia
countries
về
really
vì
did
virus
not get
corona
to
nha
the
các
point
bạn.
of trying
Và
to
bây giờ là
contain
những
and
câu hỏi của
mitigate
những
very
nhà
well,
báo
you
sẽ
see
đặt
a
ra
peak
với
over several
Tổng thống
weeks and
Trump
then
và những
down again
người
over several weeks.
về lãnh đạo về
What
y
we're
tế
trying to do with the
của
efforts
Mỹ
that we're
sẽ
doing
trả lời
is to
những câu
blunt
hỏi
that
của những
peak.
nhà báo về
And I
những
mentioned it
trường hợp
many
này.
times, and I think it's important and appropriate for me to mention it again because it answers your question. When you talk about preventing infections from without in, which is the kind of travel restrictions we're talking about, then how do you handle what you already have in your country? You continue some sort of containment, but you also do mitigation, and you try to proportion it to the areas where there are the most infections. The success of that and how much you make this turn into this is going to give you the amount of time. If we're successful, it'll be less. If we're not successful, it's going to be more. But these kind of things generally run out in a few months. Hopefully, we'll make it several weeks, 8, 9, whatever weeks. But I can't give you a number because it depends on how successful we are.
Great, thank you. It's a great question, and Dr. Fauci and I have worked together a very long time and continue. It's a privilege to work with him every day. So I think you can learn and I appreciate there was some graphics done by some of the reporting over the last several days. If you align the data from China with the data with South Korea, you can start to see almost a complete overlay of that data. And so that's what we're tracking very closely, as well as Italy. But you have an excellent question. I just want to make one note. In South Korea, I want to repeat, only 4% of the tests were positive. That means 96% of the people had a different respiratory disease because we're in the middle of flu season, cold season, and all of the other respiratory diseases that we get every day. In LabCorp and Quest early data, they're running about 1 to 2% positive. That means that we have a lot more other respiratory disease out there besides the coronavirus, and that's why the screening is critical. But even with the screening, we're going to run what we think are very low rates. Needless to say, though, we're taking it extraordinarily seriously to plan for what could come. Not what Dr. Fauci talked about, blunting the curve. That makes it much less high need at that peak of the curve that we're all planning for. So we're in full inventory of all of our assets by the president unlocking and this emergency order and the secretary of HHS's ability. It unlocks all of those stockpiles, those needs, what the VA has, what the DOD has, what the National Guard has, and what every hospital has. And the hospital emergency preparedness plan allows them to defer elective issues to keep those hospital beds open for those who might need it. So we're in full planning mode for each of those things.
And I might add that we are in the process, and in some cases have already done it, ordered a large number of respirators just in case. We hope we don't need them, but we've ordered a large number. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. In your speech to the nation, you mentioned the situation in China and South Korea have improved, and you're thinking about remove the restrictions, also the warning in place right now. When can we expect that announcement, and how do you see the overall progress that Asian countries?
Phóng viên này hỏi về vấn đề mà phía tình trạng là Trung Quốc đã giảm cái số người bệnh thì sẽ Tổng thống Trung có giảm bỏ đi cái tình trạng nhập cảnh từ Trung Quốc hay không?
Some are really moving along rapidly. We hope to be able to open things up as quickly as possible. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
President, I'd like to ask Secretary Azar and Dr. Fauci just how Dr. Fauci, okay?
Right, better. Not 100%, but 90%.
Right.
Go ahead.
This affects the elderly primarily, and in that sense, it's an unusual disease. Is any specific research being done as to why it affects our senior citizens more than others.
Phóng viên này hỏi là tại sao cái virus corona lại ảnh hưởng đến những người lớn tuổi hơn là những người trẻ tuổi.
But we already know why it would affect senior citizens more. Because when you talk about anything that requires a robust immune system, as you get older, your immune system is not as potent as it is when you are young.
Bộ trưởng về y tế nói rằng thì dĩ nhiên những người lớn tuổi thì hệ thống miễn dịch nó sẽ yếu hơn những người trẻ tuổi.
Extraordinary experience with over decades and decades. The people who are very vulnerable are the elderly and those with underlying conditions. The same thing holds true for a variety of other disease. Why cancer is more prevalent in mostly in older individuals, because the immune system that screens for it is less robust. So it really is something that is kind of well known over a lot of studies.
Okay. OAN, please. OAN.
Mr. President, the Chinese officials are expressing some tones of discontent with how where the source of this virus has come from, and they're spinning some odd narratives. What are your response to the Chinese officials who are doing that, and have they signaled any kind of resistance to upcoming trade talks in response to how we're handling this
No, we
virus?
have our deal with China. They're going to be buying $250 billion worth of goods and $50 billion from our farmers, and it's a great deal for our country. It's about time somebody did that. And frankly, phase two will start negotiating. I did read one article, but I don't think that article was representative, certainly not in my conversations with President Xi. And they know where it came from. We all know where it came from.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yamiche Alcindor from PBS
Yes.
NewsHour. My first question is, you said that you don't take responsibility, but you did disband the White House Pandemic Office, and the officials that were working in that office left this administration abruptly. So what responsibility do you take to that? And the officials that worked in that office said that the White House lost valuable time because that office wasn't disbanded. What do you make of that?
Well, I just think it's a nasty question, because what we've done is, and Tony has said numerous times that we've saved thousands of lives because of the quick closing. And when you say me, I didn't do it. We have a group of people. I could ask perhaps by administration, but I could perhaps ask Tony about that, because I don't know anything about it. I mean, you say we did that. I don't know anything about it.
You don't know
We're
about
spending,
about the
I don't know.
reorganization that happened at the National
It's the
Security
administration. Perhaps they do that. You know, people let people go. You used to be with a different newspaper than you are now. You know, things like that happen.
But this was
Okay,
an
please go ahead. We're doing a great job. Let me tell you, these professionals behind me and these great, incredible doctors and business people, the best in the world, and I can say that, whether it's retailers or labs or anything you want to say.
Tổng thống Trump nói là chúng ta có những nhà khoa học, những nhà kinh doanh và những người bán những sản phẩm về y tế rất là tốt.
And one of the reasons we have 40 and others have, and again, that number's going up, just so you understand. And a number of cases, which are very small, relatively speaking, it's going up. But we've done a great job because we acted quickly, we acted early. And there's nothing we could have done that was better than closing our borders to highly infected areas. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Vanessa Yaklish for NTN24 for all Latin American countries,
Yes, sure.
and also for Spain, La Razón and Antena 3. I would like to ask you two very brief questions. One, for how long we're going to have the emergency, the national emergency?
I hope not long, but it's there now.
Phóng viên này hỏi là cái tình trạng khẩn cấp quốc gia này sẽ diễn ra bao lâu?
Stafford Act and
Tổng
various
thống
other
nói
things that
là
we're involved with.
hy vọng là nó sẽ không kéo dài,
Studied and
nhưng mà
memorized
chưa biết
so
chắc
many
chắn.
different ways and forms. It gives the kind of power that we need to get rid of this virus, and we're going to do it very quickly. And I hope we won't need it very long, but whatever it takes.
So for now, we still don't know for how long. And something very important I wanted to ask you is, like, how do you really think it's essential coordinating with other countries and learning from their lessons that they already suffer the same situation?
Yeah.
Countries, of course, like China and South Korea, but now recently
Sure.
Italy and Spain.
Well,
and
Italy's
how is
having-
that coordination done? Thank you
Italy's
so much,
having
Mr.
we're in touch with Italy, and it's a country that we love. We have tremendous millions and millions of people originally origins from Italy, and we're working with them. They're in a very, they're in probably, relatively speaking, the toughest position of all. We're in touch with everybody. We're in touch with, when I say everybody, we're in touch with many of the countries that you know about, that you're writing about, and they're calling us asking for advice. They're asking for the advice of the people behind me. Italy's got a tough situation, but they're really, they have really clamped down, and I think they're going to see some very good results. It's tough what they did. They really took their medicine, but they're going to see some much better results. Yeah, Jeff?
Thank you, sir. With regard to domestic travel, should Americans feel safe, or should Americans at all be traveling to states such as Washington State, New York, and other hotspots within this country? And a follow-up on Brazil, you're asking people who come back from Europe, Americans who are coming back from Europe, to self-quarantine for a couple of weeks. You were in a picture with somebody who now has coronavirus from Brazil at Mar-a-Lago. How is that different?
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, I'm not coming back from someplace.
But you were exposed.
There was somebody that they say has it. I have no idea who he is, but I take pictures and it lasts for literally seconds. I don't know the gentleman that we're talking about. I have no idea who he is. I haven't seen the picture. I said there's a picture of somebody, but I take sometimes hundreds of pictures a day. And that night I was taking hundreds of pictures, so I just don't know. Now, I did sit with the president for probably 2 hours, but he's tested negative, so that's good.
It's just a matter of, and the domestic.
Go ahead, please. I would say if you stay home, it's not bad. It's not bad. Now, there are certain parts of the country that are essentially have zero problem. Washington's been very tough, in particular a nursing home. And Washington, the state of Washington's been very tough. It's been a big percentage of, when you talk about the 40 deaths, it's been a big percentage of the deaths, as you know very well. And they all came from a certain area, unfortunately. Please, go ahead. Go ahead. Okay.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Mr. President. Cordelia Lynch, Sky News. You talked this week about the UK doing a good job in tackling coronavirus. In light of the rise in cases, are you changing your mind about that? You also just spoke about possible travel restrictions. Have you discussed when they might be put in place?
Well, in light of the results, as we discussed before, in light of the results, we're going to be looking at it. And I know the task force is looking at it very strongly, Vice President, everybody. It was looking good, but the results have been building up pretty rapidly. So we'll be taking another look at that. Yes, absolutely. Go ahead, please.
Mr. President, thank you. I want to first follow up on Jeff's question, because the person you were standing next to, whether you know who he is or not, tested positive for coronavirus. Dr. Fauci said this morning, if you stand next to somebody who tested positive, you should self-isolate and get a test. You say your White House doctor is telling you something different. Who should Americans listen to? And my second question
I think they have to listen to their doctors. And I think they shouldn't be jumping to get the test unless it's necessary. But I think they have to listen to their doctors. And I mean, I don't know I haven't seen the picture. Somebody said there's a picture with somebody taking a picture with me, but I haven't seen it.
Well, doctors have
But I
said you
can
might
tell
have it even if you don't have symptoms. Are you being selfish by not getting tested and potentially
Well, I didn't say I
exposing-
wasn't going to be tested.
Are you going to be?
Most likely, yeah. Most
When do you
likely.
think
Not for
that'll
that
happen?
reason, but because I think I will do it anyway.
Will you let us know
Fairly
the
soon.
results?
We're working on that. We're working out a schedule.
My second question, Mr.
You go
President,
ahead,
that was
please.
a follow-up.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I know there's been a lot of talk about testing. I just want to make sure we're clear, though, because we've been hearing from doctors who say, as of today, they still can't get patients tested who need a test. So as of today, can everyone who a doctor wants to have tested get tested? And if not, when?
Well,
When
that's
will
been
doctors
true for a
do it?
while, but I'll let Mike, why don't you answer that, Mike?
Well, as the president said, and Dr. Fauci has articulated, the nature of our current system where the CDC has samples sent and tests are performed, or state labs perform tests, or in some cases, university and hospital labs perform tests, is generally adequate for an infectious disease or for people getting a diagnostic work done. But given the sheer scale of this, the president tasked us with bringing together this extraordinary public and private partnership. Today, by some estimates, when you add all the labs together, and today the president made it possible for every state in the country and their state labs to authorize labs across their state to do coronavirus testing. We're estimating somewhere between 15 and 20,000 tests a day are able to be performed. But very soon, with the program that was announced today, Americans will be able to visit one of the sites closest to them, as described on the website, if they're symptomatic, if the questionnaire indicates it, be able to have a test there. And these
Phó Tổng thống cho Mike Pence nói là tất cả những cái lab và những cái lab mà nơi các bạn sinh sống có thể làm chức năng để khám những cái người có những cái biểu hiện của virus corona.
Authorized lab can contact the state lab. And again, every state lab in the country can perform tests today. But what the president charged us with when I was tasked to take over the White House Coronavirus Task Force was open up tests all across the country. The president said a few days ago that we made it clear that any American that wanted to get a test would be able clinically to get a test. Because I literally heard from the governor of Washington State who said the doctors in Washington State were saying that if you were only mildly symptomatic, they would not order a test. And fortunately, the president directed CDC to clarify that. Now, anyone in consultation with their physician, regardless of their symptoms, can request a test, and their doctors will contact those agencies, those labs in their state. But very soon, Americans will be able to go to these drive-in sites and be able to obtain and participate in a test. Dr. Birx, is there more to amplify that?
No, I think that's perfectly said. I think just to review once more time about the testing, with LabCorp and Quest, I think many of you have been to doctor's office and seen the little boxes outside. What they do is they deliver both the specimen collection piece, because remember, it's a nasal swab. It's not a tube of blood. So they've delivered that to doctors' offices and hospitals, and then they will arrange to pick that up. The important piece in this all is they've gone from a machine that may have a lower throughput to the potential to have automated extraction. I know you don't want all these details, but it's really key for the laboratory people. It's an automated extraction of the RNA that then runs in an automated way on the machine with no one touching it, and the result comes out of the other end. So sample to machine to results. That cuts out a lot of the manual pieces that were happening that were delaying the test results.
And so with that, what's the timeline like from when you're tested to when you get results? Like next week, what should people expect?
Well, with the prior testing, it was taking several days because the test is slower. We believe with this test, because of its throughput, that the testing can be from start, remember it has to transport, to the laboratory that will run it. And then we're hoping that all can be finished within 24 hours, which is very similar to other tests that you received today. These are not point of care tests. We are working on point of care tests, but we have to realize point of care tests take 6 months or more to develop. So we're not waiting for those. We're still diagnosing this on nucleic acid. So it's an antibody. This is actually the antigen, the actual virus in your nose that we're amplifying.
I think you have to remember, though, we're working very closely with states, and you have a smaller form and more targeted form of government going in and doing it, like in New York, where the relationship is very good, like Gavin Newsom, where he made some very complimentary, that's California, he made some really complimentary comments the other day about how we're working together. We worked on the ship together, but we worked on a lot of other things together having to do with this. And we're really, the relationship that we have, I can't think of a bad relationship. We're helping them. We're funding them in some cases, depending on what it is you're talking about. And we're all working together very closely. So we've done really, I think, a tremendous job of teamwork with the different states. All right, one or two more. And if you have questions for these folks, does anybody have a question for the folks up here? Who has a question up here? You have? Okay, go ahead. If you have a question, go ahead.
Thank you. I have one for you as well.
I thought. I know
No, but I do
was.
have one for them because I haven't heard this
I was waiting
yet.
for that. Go ahead.
Because I haven't heard this yet.
Ask them first, please.
Yes, I will. Okay, with regards to the CEOs, can you please tell us when you expect to see items like hand sanitizer that have been going out of stock very quickly back on the shelves? There have been a lot of reports about that. And for you, Mr. President, could you talk about a potential bailout for the cruise industry? You had suggested that could happen. Is that something you're still looking at, and how much would that be?
Well, I didn't suggest that it could happen, but I can tell you it's an industry that was very badly impacted by what's going on with the virus. And it's a great industry. It's a very important industry, and we will be helping them, and we will be helping the airline industry if we have to, assuming we have to. So far, people haven't been asking, but if they should be asking, we want to make sure our airline is very strong. And then one day, all of a sudden, wasn't looking so good. Interestingly, I was talking to Doug, and the numbers they're doing from the retailing standpoint, I guess because of this, your business is like the opposite. All of you you've been selling a lot of stuff. Do you want to answer the question as to the hand sanitizers?
Sure. Specifically, the areas where we're seeing pressure in the supply chain are surface cleaners, cleaning supplies, paper goods in particular. Hand sanitizer is going to be very difficult to have 100% in stock.
Và nhập báo hỏi về những vấn đề về những mặt hàng về diệt khuẩn như là hand sanitizer rồi
What is your advice though for Americans who are seeking those items? What is your advice? They're selling out online, they're selling out in the stores.
I think this team has given you other examples of what people can do to fight back against this virus, and you should look at the entire list.
Dr. Fauci,
please
speak to that. It'd be good. I mean, obviously it sounds very simplistic, but wash your hands as often as you possibly can. And I know you're not always in a position to be able to wash your hands.
Lời khuyên của bác sĩ về cách phòng tránh đầu tiên về virus corona này về phải rửa tay thật sạch.
Well, just general preparedness. You want to wash your hands. You want to keep distance from people, and if you're around someone sick,
hand sanitizer các bạn.
Basic public health. Now, these guys are selling a lot of toilet paper. I don't know. There seems Tony, do you need to give some guidance that toilet paper is not an effective protection against getting the coronavirus? They're selling out, but the soap and water, hot water, soap, 20 seconds. That's how you do it.
Okay, one more. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, I'll be behind you. Behind you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. You have a great team, of course.
That's true.
My question is, Mr. President, are you happy from the Chinese response? What correctly really told you what really happened those days? And second, Prime Minister Modi or India have closed borders until April 15th, if you have spoken with the Prime Minister of India and if they have needed any help. And finally, sir, any message for the small businesses because they are losing some businesses because of this? Thank you, sir.
Well, on small businesses, the Small Business Administration is now stacked with money to help them, and we're going to make the money readily available if they need it, small businesses. We had a great time in India. It was an incredible 2 days, and he's a great friend of mine, and he's a friend of his people because he was greeted incredibly warmly, as was I, in that stadium. It was an incredible event, and I loved being with him. So just say hello to him. But we talked about everything. We talked about far more than just borders. And as far as President Xi, likewise, he's a friend of mine. I believe that we are dealing in good faith. We just worked, as you know, as I just said, we just worked an incredible deal, big deal, one of the biggest deals ever made of any kind. Big even by the standards of some of the people here, the deal with China. But I think that they want to get to the bottom of things also. We're working, our drug companies, our pharmaceutical companies are working very closely with China and with India, as you know, and with all over the world. And they're all over the world. These are magnificent companies that are very, very knowledgeable. And we're very lucky to have them because I think you're going to come up with, whether it's therapeutic or whether it's just helping getting better. And then ultimately a vaccine, which takes a little bit longer because of the test periods and a couple of other reasons. You're going to have it very quickly because of the the great knowledge, and they'll have it very quickly. They've made a tremendous amount of progress. Thank you all very much. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
President Trump concluding a rather lengthy news conference there in the Rose Garden, along with other officials, about the government's response to coronavirus. The president declaring a national emergency that essentially unlocks billions of dollars. I think he said $50 billion that can be used now in the fight. He also noted a new partnership being formed with U.S. officials and private companies that he says and believes will expand the availability of testing for the virus. In addition, we learned about a website that will be going up soon that will allow people.
Ok, cảm ơn các bạn đã theo dõi cái buổi tuyên bố về tình trạng khẩn cấp quốc gia của Tổng thống Donald Trump vào ngày hôm nay. Thì tối nay thì Viet ghi chú sẽ có trực tiếp về cái lịch visa tháng 4 và sẽ trả lời những cái thắc mắc của các bạn về cái lịch visa cũng như những cái case của các bạn nhé. Cảm ơn các bạn đã theo dõi.